Welcome back to the Always Aggressive podcast. I'm Corey, that's Tanner, and head coach Tony Ersland along for the ride here. Fellas, it's a busy time, busy week. I know you guys had a busy weekend last weekend, a very well attended, it sounds like, parents weekend here on campus. Coach, had to be great to get the very extended family on campus, huh?
No doubt. I mean, all of these firsts as you come out of, I get we're still in COVID, right? We talk about this all the time, but things are more normal. And so when you go 2 years and have not seen a lot of these people, right? I mean, to have them all in one building or one room or at the same tailgate, that's very refreshing. Like those are things that they just kind of keep coming up, the first couple practices where you're not all in masks or you're not in small group instruction, like those are like milestones. I think of those as kind of milestones. And this weekend was another milestone because we had a vast majority of our parents and people associated with Purdue wrestling back in town to watch practice and then get together at a tailgate prior to the football game. So yeah, it was awesome. Again, it just felt like a very refreshing milestone again that signals we're heading towards, just something that's just a more normal way of life for us.
It was really interesting when I started, and it didn't even hit me until we actually got up to the tailgate and I started shaking people's hands and meeting them, because we weren't able to do anything with last year's freshman class. Most of the freshmen didn't visit campus. They didn't do official or unofficial visits with their parents. So we had 2 full cycles of kids who we never got to be around their parents. So getting to put some names with some faces and get that first introduction was really cool. Tony, I thought one of the funny comments I heard from a couple parents was that they, I feel like I know you already from the podcast. I got that a couple times and it made me chuckle because you know how I always say, I'm like, you mean people actually watch this or listen to this? That's wild. Crazy. I thought we're talking to ourselves.
Yeah, so that gave you the warm and fuzzies on the back of your neck, didn't it?
A little bit. Well, you know what? It means that the time that we spend doing this, every week or every other week, is worth the effort.
Yep.
I think that's what anybody probably wants to feel about their work and their time, is that they're doing something that makes a difference or makes an impact on somebody on some level. So no, I thought that was really cool. Also probably need to send a thank you and a shout out to the guys over at Gridiron Metalworks, Derek Diltz and Paul Sadler. They came and they grilled all the food for us and made it so that we could go out and mingle and talk to people and be around all the families. And that was awesome. Their efforts were greatly appreciated. So Gridiron Metal is gridironmetal.com, I believe. I have to go double check on the address and I'll put that out somewhere, because if I mess that up, I'll feel really bad. But they just put a bunch of Purdue wrestling stuff in their store. They do some really cool stuff. So really appreciate those guys coming out and helping us.
Yep. No, it was a great day. The weather cooperated, right? The sun came out the day before. Boy, it was miserable. So I was kind of wondering, but
it was miserable the next day too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. We just snuck it right in the middle, and it worked out. And it was great again to see and meet people. And I say meet because a lot of us, we'd done this through Zoom, right? So it's like you're introducing yourself all over again. And I know I wasn't able to catch up necessarily with everybody who was there, with schedules. Some were going to the game, some were, doing different things, but it was nice to at least see people where it wasn't a Zoom call. I've had more than a few parents where it was like, you're introducing yourself again, but that's how we got through the recruiting process. So it was an interesting day, like I said, to say the least.
Yeah. Another funny note from the family tailgate. I don't know if I ever told you about this, Tony. Jeff Coleman tried to get me. He came up.
Coleman tried to get you.
Jeff Coleman tried to get me. There were two of the young kids' parents that were standing in a triangle talking, and I had come over and introduced myself, and and Jeff was last, and Jeff stuck his hand out, and I knew who he was, and Jeff stuck his hand out. He says, "Hi, I'm Emil's dad." Like to shake, like I didn't know who he was. I said, "Jeff, that's not funny. Like, don't mess with me." I said, "I know who." I said 2 years ago, I know who those kids' parents are. I don't know these new kids, but I appreciate the
Nice
effort.
try. Yeah.
Oh, and it was pretty. Everybody in attendance laughed pretty hard. There was some tears on some folks. It was pretty good.
Yeah, that was nice. That's a good effort. This has been the year to slide one in.
Solid, yeah.
Right? Make your play. I get it. That's good. I appreciate the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, nope. I know who Emil's parents are, and I know who your kid is. Don't mess with me.
Yeah, like I said, it was a lot of fun, very refreshing, and again, with us being on the verge of the season, just a great way to kick it off, getting with people, and just enjoying the day.
Absolutely. We'll transition from one event to another. Hopefully, we're going to see a lot of these people back here Friday evening. Guys are going to make weight. They're going to put on the singlets, tie their shoes up for the first time as we host Wrestle Offs Friday, October 29th, Holloway Gymnasium for the public admission. It's going to be awesome to put this up to everyone into Holloway again.
Yeah, now you got a little glitchy there, Tanner, but you were talking about Wrestle Offs, buddy, in Holloway, right? 7 o'clock.
Yes.
There you go. Sorry, you went glitchy. We're still doing this whole COVID Zoom stuff, right? But no, it's gonna be it's gonna be fun to watch these guys kind of come out and get after each other for the last time before we start the season. We'll get a good idea of what the lineup looks like, but regardless, again, to be upstairs in Holloway and have that going and have another official on the whistle will just be good. It's a piece of the puzzle for us. I say this often, but I like to make sure it's clear. Like, a lot of these guys, that you see win will be the guys in the lineup, but it's always just a piece of the puzzle. We don't just take just the winners off the Wrestle Off and that's our lineup. It's just an indicator of where people are at. So yeah, we call them Wrestle Offs, but maybe indicator matches is what I really think of them as. It shows us where guys are really at. So that'll be exciting. And it's dress rehearsal too, right? A lot of what this is, besides the matches for me, is watching how the kids' final preparations go. And that's a big deal for us too, because the guys who are taking care of their bodies, right, doing their weight the right way, taking care of their minds, getting their rest, getting their sleep, coming down to weight for the first time, it's that dress rehearsal as much as anything. So yes, the matches are part of it. And I know a lot of people will watch for results, but for me, it's that fine tuning of here's how we're going to make weight, do our warm-ups, and then go compete. And then we'll make notes and we'll tweak, and that'll help us for next week when just about everybody, or anybody who's healthy anyways, is going to compete both out at Drexel and Ryder and then the Michigan State Open. So it's as much about that for me as it is, the matches themselves and what the outcomes look like.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've always found it interesting to see how, the guys get down to weight for the first time and they do it in a setting that is not, that doesn't count per se. I mean, obviously, every time you get out there, it counts. But, when it's going to go on that official form and we're going to go out there and compete with the team score with another school. So like you said, watching them do it for the first time. So if they're going to mess up, let's mess up Friday. Let's not mess up next Saturday.
Well, and maybe it's just, if you mess up, to use your term, right? If something goes sideways, maybe it's just a part of the plan that needs to be tweaked or changed, not from lack of discipline or anything like that, right? I mean, that's really where I'm at. And it kind of goes to what we were talking with the team about, right? Like, you got to be mature in your outlook. This is important because it is a piece of the puzzle on your way to March to the NCAA championships. It's that first rung on the ladder in my mind. So now you're starting your climb and you've got to do it right today, because it's going to help you figure out what next week and the following week in March needs to look like for you to land, where you want to be with your goals. And so you got to be mature, right? Like you've got to have suffered and sacrificed with your weight and your training and how you're doing this now. And it's got to be important in that way. And I can't emphasize that enough, because it's easy to get caught up in something you said where you said it doesn't count. And I know you're just saying, hey, it doesn't go on a record form. And I get
Right.
where you're at, but it's really easy for athletes to slide into that frame of mind. And then you delay your preparation because you're thinking, well, this doesn't really count. Right. And that's couldn't be further from the truth in terms of my point of view, like my evaluation of where this athlete is at and what is he doing and how is he preparing, and what's it look like. So I guess I want to distinguish that, right? So that we all kind of know what we're looking at. It's as much about how are you preparing going into your final preparations for competition as much as anything too, besides the result.
Well, and I think you brought up another interesting point too, is, I use the term you mess up, but the reality is that you could do everything right. It just doesn't work out for your body. And like you said, you might need to tweak it. You might need to do something a little different. And so you may not have messed up. You may not, a young man may not have, made any mistakes. They may have followed all the directions. It just so happened that the directions didn't necessarily fit their body or how their body was going to react to it. So you definitely added some perspective to kind of like looking at that preparation piece and getting down to weight and being ready to wrestle on a 1 hour weigh-in type deal. So I thought that was interesting. Corey, when Tony goes on these diatribes of coach speak, like, what kind of eye-opening does he give you as far as when he starts, changing perspectives on you and pulling out, some of these ways to look at things that, regular guys like me and you may not.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think that's the whole point of what we should be trying to do here is go inside the, however scary it might be, inside the mind of the head coach. Because that leads to really interesting takeaways and knowledge, like you said, broadening of knowledge is awesome. And Tony, when you did that, when you talked about getting prep, it's not the first time we've talked about that on this show, but I wonder, like it made me wonder, does that change from year to year for guys? Like, okay, so they have to know the right routine. It's all about peaking in March, and it's all about finding, okay, this worked for me, this didn't work for me, this definitely worked, I'm not going to do this sequence again. And for guys like the young guys who are going through this the first or even the second time, I get that. For guys like D Schroed or Max Lyon or Tom Pinola, does that change from year to year too for them, or do they have, to your experience, more of a a tried and true way of doing things?
Well, I think it changes, and it can change year to year, but I think, as you have more and more experience doing this, you figure out, right, what creates consistency in your performance, right? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for what is going to get me to my highest level of performance. What's my warm-up look like? Where do I need to be in terms of my headspace, right? Like you think about emotionally, do you need to be revved up to a 10 to compete? Or is that so revved up that I can't focus on what I need to do, what I have to execute? Maybe it's a 7. So figuring out what the warm-up needs to be, where you need to be kind of in terms of, emotionally, what level that is, and how you go into the match, what gets the best out of you. I think that changes guy to guy and year to year. Okay. Although, for a guy like Devin Schroeder, who's in year 6, I still have a hard time saying that, but he's in year 6. Devin seems to have a really good handle on what he's doing, right? He knows what he needs. Now, that doesn't mean we won't tweak something, because as he's making weight and doing something, he might find something that works a little bit better for him, and he'll make an adjustment. I don't think you ever want to just lock yourself or pigeonhole yourself in, right? Like you've always got the plan can change no matter what, right? The goals stay the same. The goal is, throughout the year to knock these things off that you set for yourself, short-term, long-term, mid-range goals, but how you get there can vastly change with illness or sickness, or how you're making weight and your body's reacting, how and when you cut your weight and get ready to wrestle. So again, this is as much about that as it is just seeing who's going to perform well, because we are going to have to tweak the plan for guys. And then look at a first year guy, right? These guys are still new to our program. This is the first time they're coming down to weight under our plan. So like we had Elaine in to talk to the team, about here, you're at your 5% on this day, then we're going to come down to our 3% on that day. Now it's squeeze water and make weight and wrestle, right? And so it's their first time. And again, you're watching to see how that goes because you'll make adjustments from there too. So I don't treat anybody the same. You find what gets them ready, the best way possible, and then you go from there. So it's fun. That's what keeps it interesting for me because no 2 years are exactly the same.
You got 30 guys on the roster that, they all require that type of, individualized approach beyond just training, beyond just, the talent in the room. I can see that being a really fun challenge for someone of that coaching mindset.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and here, I'll give you one example. I'll go off on a tangent a little bit, but Coach Souflone, who's here with us, I'll use Jake. We tweaked a lot with him in terms of his warm-up because he was in such tremendous shape. We knew he was going to be the strongest man at the end of the match.
Yep. It
was just making sure that he went in, in that first 30 seconds when they blew the whistle, that he was ready to go because he always got his motor running, hotter and harder towards the end. It's like if he was a little slow out of the gate, sometimes he was having to run a guy down.
Yep.
Late. And if he was on the short end of the stick, it was because he ran out of time. So we played with his warm up off and on to make sure that when he put his foot on the line, he was almost like in mid match, like that's where his heart rate and kind of everything else was as far as him competing. So, again, those are the fun things, that I enjoy about helping young men through, find out what gets them to their best, effort when they take the mat.
Pop quiz time. And I'll let Corey go first because Tony's going to have a different answer. Friday, lights come on. Corey, who are you most excited to see step onto the mat for 21-22?
I kind of knew this question was coming. I'm gonna take the layup. I haven't been in the room since last spring, so I haven't had a chance to see Kendall post injury. I'm really looking forward to seeing him back on the mat and competing, whether that's Friday night or next week or the rest of the season. Just he's a ton of fun to watch to begin with, but just seeing him bounce back, seeing him back out there 100% is what I'm most looking forward to.
Fun note about Kendall, we were getting all the families came over to an open practice Saturday morning before they went up to the tailgate, and Jake Morrissey, our recent alum, who's a Lafayette PD SWAT, was in the room hanging out. And Jake looked at Kendall and he was watching him for a second. He goes, man, he makes fast guys look slow.
That's well said.
It was. And so, yeah, I shared that. I mean, you opposite end of the spectrum, you get to see these guys every day. So you're seeing them in practice. Who are you most excited to see step out under the lights?
I get I'm going to give you a really boring answer because I like a lot of them. I mean, we've got a lot of, I believe we got a lot of really good kids that can do well. And I'm excited to see how they come out. Now, a lot of these guys you've seen for a number of years. Let's just take them out because a lot of people have seen them and know what they are. Kendall's in that group. I'll tell you a guy who's looked really good, Alec White, is a kid that I'm very excited about. You talk about fast guys, he's got great athletic ability. He's been in our room a long time and he looks very focused this year. So he's a guy that I throw out there that I'm anxious because he's not been in the lineup as much, but boy, he looks like he really wants the spot, and that's not taking anything away. We've got other guys at that weight. Cruzy, Trey Cruzy, Ethan Smiley. We got other guys, man, that are very rock solid guys, and they're gonna fight and be there. But I mentioned him because he's really very focused this year, and so I'm excited for him. The other guy, Emil Sunland, has had a tremendous summer and fall. Like he's a workhorse. He's putting in the time. he's got every right to be, very confident and going into this year. You know what I mean? So, and that's to add in the whole list of guys, right? Like, we got 6, 7 other guys ranked, right? National qualifiers, won matches, and those two guys are I think going to be tremendous pieces for us this year. That I want to see, want to see that hard work pay off for him this winter.
We talk about this sometimes, Tony, in the office, about how like there's certain guys that can go out and lay it on the line every day in practice. And then there's certain guys that when those lights come on, a switch flips and they go to a whole different level. I, for one, I'm excited to see some of those guys get out of the practice room and get the lights to come on and see what that transformation looks like as they go into competition mode as opposed to practice mode.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, right? I go coach speak again, to get your hand raised, right? In the toughest of matches and situations, you got to have two things, right? Day to day practice habits, the effort you give, the focus that you have has to be at 100%. You got to have that day to day preparation there. But then the same thing happens when you put your foot on the line. You got to be ready to give everything you got too. I mean, if you miss any one of those things, you're short. You don't get there. And so that's that piece you're talking about, where I see our preparation's been very good. I feel good about where this team is at and the focus that they've had. And now, hey, it's when you put your foot on the line, show all that hard work you've put in. Free yourself up, go wrestle to your potential, wrestle your kind of match. And that's the piece, right? We're going to see some of that Friday night, and we're excited to see some of that. And then we're going to see it again, November 6th for real. So that's what I'm really looking for. I'm sold on the preparation of this team and the talent and what they've done so far. And now, hey, when we put our foot on the line, you got to, throw everything you got at your opponent across from you, no matter who he is.
And you talk about coming up short, and I wanted to add that Vega's short, whether he gets ready, whether he prepares,
oh, geez,
whether he prepares well or not.
Wow.
You had to go there.
Man.
Yeah, I did. He's been giving me a hard time lately, so I really wanted to make sure I got a shot in it at Leroy on today's show. That was important to me. So I appreciate you setting me up for that.
Yeah.
That was a dynamite drop in. Is that what you usually, is that what you call it?
That's a dynamite drop in. Now I almost might suggest that we have Coach Vega on an episode in the future and let him respond, because the listeners might be interested. They might want to know, what his response is here.
I don't know. I kind of like having the power to be able to talk about him without him being on here to respond. That actually, it makes me feel good about myself. It makes me feel, it's a throne of power of sorts. So
it's a very one-sided conversation at this point.
Yeah. And those are the kind of conversations I like to have with Vega, are the ones. Yeah, for sure. Now, the next thing we got to talk around a little bit, because this information is not public yet, and so there's a lot of this that we cannot talk about. But the Big Ten Network television schedule is rapidly approaching. There are rumors that it could come out in the next 24 to 48 hours. I can't say that with any sort of like firm hand, but I'm, fingers crossed for all our listeners, because I know they're anticipating finding out when they're going to be able to watch us on the linear network, and courtesy for our good man Corey Palm here on the BTN Plus stream. So either way, lots of Purdue wrestling to be watched this year. But I would like to talk about a very specific date that is going to be a first of its kind event. January 23rd is going to be a pretty special date, right, Ers?
Yeah, no, I'm pumped. I'll preface it by saying we've got a lot of preparation that we're going to be putting into this, and that has gone into it already. But the fact that we're to the point where it's a thing has me super excited. Hoops and Headlocks. Tanner, that's your idea with the name, right? I got to give you credit. Is that?
I'll share it with Bailey. Bailey and I were the ones that stumbled into this concept. So, yeah.
So a shout out to Bailey as well, and you. But Hoops and Headlocks is the name of the event, and we are going to be having men's basketball against Northwestern in the afternoon. And then we will follow shortly after the conclusion of that event with our dual meet against Wisconsin. And my understanding is BTN's doing both events. And the game has already been sold out for Northwestern, correct?
The men's basketball game is sold out, 14,123.
Yep. So the goal is to keep everybody in the building and have 14,123 people watch Purdue wrestling against Wisconsin, another quality opponent in the Big Ten. Should be a great match. And I don't think there's probably ever been a bigger crowd to watch a wrestling duel here at Purdue. That's a heck of a crowd there, and something we're excited about the prospect of. So we're look for more information on that as we move through the months leading up to it.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot that goes into it. We're trying to involve all different areas of athletics, from development to sponsorships to our people who do our concession stands to different promotions and giveaways, and everything's on the table right now as far as what we could do with that. What we hope is only 45 minutes to an hour between contests, but I tried to suggest locking all the doors to Mackey Arena so that nobody could leave.
I'm sure the fire marshal loved that idea.
Apparently there's something called fire code or something like that they cited that said I can't do that. But so it's going to be great though, because after the basketball game is over, we'll have free admission after that. So anybody who does decide to leave, we will be able to let in parents and other fans for wrestling. If people don't have tickets to the basketball game and they want to come for wrestling, the doors will be open. It will be they will be able to come in and watch. But shout out to our facilities crew and everybody who's worked behind the scenes to make this possible and come up with the ideas and the concepts to game ends, roll the mats out, get everything going. Meanwhile, men's basketball, they're going to be having their press conferences and all their post-game stuff behind the scenes. So there is going to be a ton of moving pieces and parts to this. But it should be a pretty special event. And to my understanding, I would love to hear if I'm wrong. If there's anybody that's ever done a men's basketball wrestling doubleheader in one venue before, that would be some cool history if anybody knows about something like that. But
I've never heard of such an event, honestly. I mean, I've been around for a long time, and providing a dual or double event is not new, right? Like you have Beauty and the Beast with, say, gymnastics and wrestling or something else.
Rumble and tumble.
What's that?
I said I've heard it called rumble and tumble before.
Yes, but I've never seen something like this. So very unique, and like I said, we really need people to stick around and let's pack Mackey and have an all-time crowd for Purdue Wisconsin wrestling.
Absolutely. Put it on your calendars, January 23rd. All the details will be announced as we get closer to the event, as far as what promotions will be available, when times, what times things are going to start, what level involvement the TV folks over at BTN are going to have, how much they're going to have my guy Corey chasing his tail to help us get ready for that thing.
He's going to set up a cot back downstairs in the media room.
It's going to be a busy day, buddy. Yeah, we made life tougher for you on January 23rd.
Hey, where's Corey? He's sleeping next to the coffee machine. Wake him up.
Maybe now's not the right time to get into this, but we got some time once more details are known. But how this idea come about? I would think this is kind of a discussed at the highest levels to begin with type of an event, it seems.
No,
okay.
No, that's not how it came about. Actually, Bailey Schlofeld and I we were in her office and we were talking through the wrestling schedule and we were discussing different things. And I think we were talking about the idea of like combo events, like we were trying to figure out like what's a way that we can.
Yeah, what can we tag with?
And we were just spitballing honestly, and then we kind of started thinking about the idea of a doubleheader. Like, how can we leverage a men's basketball crowd into a wrestling event type of deal, and different ways that we could do that. And it was born out of that little one-off side conversation that she and I were having on a random afternoon over in her office. So, and then from there, we just started slowly involving more people, like asking like, hey, how could we do this? And, you know, there were some shifts from the initial plan as far as like, you know, we had it formatted one way and we found out that there were some headaches that made it so that we couldn't do it that way. So we adjusted it. And, you know, we started calling people at the Big Ten, started calling people at the Big Ten Network and asking like, hey, what do you think of this? Do you think this is viable? Do you think this is something people would be interested in? You know, shout out to AJ Eads. AJ helped us, you know, with this, you know, podcast, you know, friend of the podcast.
Yep.
And yeah, it just kind of slowly kept going. And finally, you know, Bailey and I wore people down until they said yes.
Persistence.
Oh man, we weren't going to let it go.
At what point was Matt Painter asked, and who had to make that ask? Tony.
Ersland made that ask.
Yeah, I caught up with Paint and talked to him, and he was very open. You know, I mean, obviously there's always logistical challenges that we're not aware of, right? Like we see a great event and want to do it. And so that's working through it with our facilities people and events people, you know, that those are the hurdles you have to navigate. But I will say Painter was open and great about it, you know, kept an open mind, you know, certainly he you know, had some things he was concerned about, but very supportive from that end. You know, I will say that, hey, he's been great in terms of, you know, wanting to help if he could and make it work.
Yeah. It was funny. Ersland, when I actually pitched Ersland the idea and I told him about it in my office, he's like, let's call Painter. He whips out his cell phone and calls Paint on speakerphone right there on the spot. I was like, Painter's not going to answer you. He doesn't want to talk to you. And sure enough, Matt Painter answers the phone and he's like, man, this has got to be important if the big dog's calling me. So, but no, Paint likes wrestling. It's my understanding. Did he room with wrestlers in college?
Yeah. He references that. He hung out with wrestlers in his day. So yeah, he's got some experience. And
that's how I know Painter's not all there.
He asked me about takedowns for $1 all the time in the parking lot as we we're coming and going. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe that's a promo for us. You know, I don't know.
Does that count as sports gambling? We'll have to ask Jacqueline.
Probably. Hey, the other thing too, I would like to give a shout out to. I know obviously Painter has to give his blessings, but Elliot Bloom was great
for sure
in terms of that. You know, so just want to give credit where credit is due there too. Like working with those guys from basketball, they were always supportive of this concept, and so we appreciate that.
One thing about go ahead,
Corey.
One thing about those dudes is, you know, they love their sport, they love their team. They love Purdue. They love the Boilermakers, and they're going to do whatever it takes, no matter who it helps for the department. That's awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's well said, Corey.
You know, the thing I was going to add was it's amazing how much people don't know about the behind the scenes and the production that goes into putting on an event. Just one event, you know what I mean? Like, let's just take that men's basketball that day. The amount of people that have to get here first thing in the morning for a game that doesn't tip off until 5-6 hours later, and they're setting up this and they're checking in this and they're making sure that this is done, whether it's fire code, whether it's, the police officers coming around doing the building sweep, whether it's concessions, all that stuff. So then to turn that into 2 events, like there's a huge amount of appreciation that goes out to everybody who has already, I mean, and there's still, like we said, there's still a lot of work to be done, but just solving the logistics to this point of people that have signed off on this being a yes is a huge win for Purdue. And, you know, there's a lot of appreciation from us.
Yep. No doubt.
So look for more information on Hoops and Headlocks. January 23rd should be pretty incredible if only they'd let me chain the doors.
Love it.
Last but certainly not least, one of the best weekends for high school wrestling of the year was this last weekend. While we were here with all our families and parents doing the football game and the tailgate, Coach Shop was out in North Carolina taking in the prestigious Super 32 tournament. And it was some pretty incredible high-level wrestling. And, I didn't get to watch a ton of it live, but I definitely have watched a ton of it. And I know you have too, Tony.
Yeah, no, Shop was out there working very hard. Clearly, we had limited number of dates, for Parents Weekend and home football game stuff. So we decided that we were going to be here for that. Coach Shop, we needed to have a presence down there because, as you mentioned, it's the best high school tournaments. You know what I mean? Well, and kids, right? They have kids divisions as well. Out there, very deep brackets, a lot of tremendous talent there with ranked kids. So we had to have a presence there. Shop was out there holding down that fort, talking to people, watching the matches, sending us kind of reports on kids and those things. And, I even way to keep track of it myself. I was at a swim meet on Sunday. My son Jackson, who is an avid swimmer, had a meet that I was able to get away, sneak away for and watch. But yet I don't know what people thought because I had my head down, watched my phone for about 4 hours. I'd looked up for his races, right?
Okay.
I'm there for him, but my head was down on my phone for about 4 hours. So I'm not sure what people thought of that.
Man,
I'm really not unfriendly. I do like to talk. That was work too. So I'd look up for the 200-meter freestyle, right? Or something like that. I'd look up, watch Jax, and then the head would go down too. So I felt kind of bad at the end of the day, how maybe that kind of had looked. Cause even Carol had something to say about, it was nice. You worked all day looking at your phone. I was like, it's a big day. This is a big day, man. So.
Yeah. It was amazing how deep some of those brackets were and how much information there was to sift through. One cool note that I'd like to make sure it gets on the show. We held a Super 32 training, Tony Ersland wrestling camps and the Purdue wrestling staff. We held a training camp the week before. There were 19 young men who attended our camp that went out to Super 32. And of those 19, 7 kids placed, 3 made it to the round of 12, and 2 more made it to the round of 16. So hats off to those guys. I know we can't mention them by name,
right?
But we hope camp helped, and we hope that that was a fun and helpful experience for them as they chased the podium out in North Carolina.
Yeah, and we thought that was a good room, right? Like, I mean, when you have those kids come in, you're like, wow, we got a lot of good kids here. But then you see the results, and that kind of backs it up, right? And for people who may not be aware, if you're new to wrestling or the show, that's 128-man brackets. So when you're talking about placing, man, you're talking about top 8 out of 128 or more. Or more. So that was a big tournament, quality field, and to have those kind of numbers in terms of placers, round of 12 and even round of 16, suggests that those were some pretty talented kids in our room.
Yeah. From a recruiting perspective, Tony, you look at these brackets, and you just said it, like, you're talking huge brackets that are deep, that have 20, 25 ranked individuals in them from all over the country. Kids that have had, some kids flew, some kids drove, some kids cut a lot of weight, some kids didn't cut much weight. How do you sift through all that information as a coach and get something out of it?
Well, I think, we go back to what we've talked about before, like the results are one thing, right? There's results there for you to evaluate their skill sets, how they compete, how they respond to tough situations, right? Over the course of 2 days and several matches, how they respond to good calls, bad calls, adversity, like there's that, right? You can see it and you can evaluate it. But then after that, it's getting to know them, right? You're picking up the phone, or you're talking to parents and the kids, and you're really trying to find out what makes them tick, And is this a good fit for our program and what we expect from our kids? It just starts with that, right? There's no easy way to get around it. You got to do the work. It's kind of like, wrestling. You got to show up, you got to work hard every day. And it's sifting through all of that, because the one thing I would say about that tournament is some kids cut a lot of weight. It's a weigh-in first day, and then you're not making weight after that, right? So that can be a little I don't know, surprising in terms of, if you think this kid's at that weight class, well, he may have cut really hard to make weight one time, the day before, right? Weigh-ins are the day before, and then you compete. It's not same day weigh-ins. And so those things you got to be careful with. You've got to understand, like, how much weight did he cut? How big was he for the weight? Because he may have competed at 126, but he's wrestling at 132, for the rest of the year. He's never going to see that weight again. So you got to take all of those things into consideration when evaluating the kid and how he fits for your program, in my opinion.
Oh, I know that Willie Saylor had some of that on his show yesterday. He was talking about kids and what weights they were at and how they won't compete at that weight. And, they just made it the one time. I saw another member of the media who said, made a little quip that was like, how many guys are going up now that Super 32 is over, type of deal.
Yeah.
Was, it can be easy to get lulled to sleep by the performance and the showing at this one deal. When you look at kids that may or may not compete at that weight on a regular basis.
Absolutely. And then when they got to compete up, and we compete on a 1 hour weigh-in, right? For duels, 2 hour tournaments first day. And so that can be telling. And how is a young man winning? Does he have to cut a lot of weight to be successful? And then what does that look like on a 1 hour weigh-in against a very quality opponent? There's a big difference there. And you can just look at freestyle, right? Like, freestyle used to be day before weigh-ins, and guys could really, again, cut more significant weight and look good the next day. But now that they've gone to basically, collegiate back-to-back days, weigh-ins, 2 hour weigh-ins, boy, it's really shuffled, or shifted guys from different weight classes. And then guys who were successful, maybe not as successful now, because they were cutting a lot of weight to stay in there.
Corey, you got anything else for Super 32?
No, I don't think so. You talked about the supersized brackets. That was I was blown away when I pulled those up, and I saw, round of 256.
Yeah.
My God, my head was spinning. I can't imagine that.
There's a lot of kids.
And like seated dudes having to go, having to wrestle pigtails in 256 and win 9 matches on the way to the title. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. And some very deep weights. I mean, I'm telling you, there was a couple weights that were really deep. Like, you take the top 8 kids, you'd easily take any of those top 8 kids as very quality D1 kids, and that's not every weight. There was a few weight classes where, you'd say, hey, it's not as deep. Some kids place, but maybe they're not, at the level you would want them to be. But man, there was some weights where, boy, the top 8, you'd take any of them, because they were that good.
And there's also, the fact that it's kind of a wide open tournament, like you said. So you've got 2022s or 23s, but you've got 2024s and 2025s in there competing, it's a lot for, I'm glad it was AJ's problem to keep all that straight.
Yeah. And he loves it. I mean, Shop did a good job. He's out there running around, man. I mean, it's 28 mats, but he did a great job of hustling hard and coming back. Where we built our list. We had our staff meeting yesterday, and now you're just adding names to the list, of guys that you're interested in, you're going to follow and recruit. So it was productive. It was a good trip.
Love it.
I think that's all we got for this week, guys.
This was a packed show. This might be the best show we've ever done.
Possible. Every show is the best show we've ever done. Corey, come on.
There you go.
Until next week.
Until next week.
We'll be back next week to talk about the beginning of the season. We'll recap Wrestle Offs and talk about that trip out east. And then we are on the roller coaster until the end of March. So this is the good stuff. Tony, Thanks. Tanner, thanks as always. I can only see part of you because part of you is camouflaged. There, I got my dig in. All right, we'll catch you.
I appreciate it.
Down the road. Boiler up.